almost have 6 drafts of the storyboard. The first one being one that was done just with like paintings of the period. So that we have now the record of as the project evolved, first with images that were just taken from symbolist paintings and stuff. But now what I'm doing is I'm looking at one of these early versions that had just some imagery that kind of I don't want to lose. Because when you get on the storyboard level, it's sort of like a coloring book. It has the thing of where the people are standing, but it doesn't have any magic of the image, whereas this doesn't have where they're standing, but has the magic, and somehow it's almost like these are swatches. This movie, in my interpretation of it, is going to be like a kind of dark, erotic nightmare, so that I want the feel of the movie to be, you know, more evocative of dreams and psychology than, strictly speaking, just, you know, reality.
There was a book called Dreamers of Decadence that has a lot of imagery that we referenced and were inspired by. In particular, work by Klimt, and that shows up obviously with a lot of the wardrobe.
These artistic movements influenced and informed the ways that we had of thinking about the imagery that we were using. So it was almost as if he was saying, don't just use these as visual references, become one of these artists. Try to think the way that these guys thought, and let's apply that to the imagery that we're going to use in the film.
My dad would find things that inspired him and cook up notes that would be passed along to the storyboard artist and to myself, and we would work them into our storyboards and to our planning. There was a painting by an artist named Kupka, an image of a sort of a form that has this kind of epic quality that was a point of inspiration for the castle, and it was very elusive to get that right castle image. It came together with the help of Peter Ramsey, the illustrator, to really define it, and Matt World did many of those shots that had the castle, and they kind of nailed that weird, iconic look that it has.
Yeah, dude, you want to do the Homewood stuff? It's in the script, all those little cutaways of Homewood. He's guarding Lucy, and he's drinking his booze. Okay. Those will be fun. I would, do maybe a little high angle.
When you make a movie like this with these disparate elements, you needed something more than a script. We needed something that was more a combination of text and dialogue and the actual images. I come from a composer and a musician's family, so we published what we called the score, which was like the score that an opera conductor will use when he's doing Men on Lescaut, which is a big book that has all the music and all the singing and all the dramatic directions all in one big Bible.
Steve, we have to get a level.
We're ready.
Okay. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Columbia logo, main title, and credits. We go to an exterior of Constantinople. A large cross, fire illuminates the sky. We roll the legend, 1462, Muslim Turks led by the Sultan Mohammed.
Actors were brought in. We had several different readings of the text, and slowly this document grew and was built until finally, as we were shooting the movie, the shots and the scenes were edited on top of it. So there was an interesting process of growing the movie using references and slowly welding it together out of all these pieces until finally the film was kind of born.
Pale Turks lined up along the road, his castle in the distance. Wolves are hungry. Stop. How's it sound?
Sounds wonderful.
Sounds good.
Huh? Let's go pretty fast.
This is
Very quick.
So what's the problem?
I hit thunder and I got a gunshot.
Yeah, you got a gunshot.
And then I hit one of the horses and I got an axe chop. So I'm thinking, oh God. We're just gonna redo this a little bit.
A hand comes in and pulls off the eldest bride. Dracula appears tremendous over them. Dark winds around him. Fire billows from the fireplace so that he looks like the devil himself. He bends down and grabs the youngest bride and throws her, hurling her away like a rag doll.
How dare you touch him when I have forbidden it? This man belongs to me.
She sticks to the wall like a fly. She scurries across the ceiling, taunting Dracula. The brides entwine themselves like giant insects and scurry away together.
A director, basically, when he makes a movie, is gathering material. I sometimes call it, I'm out there gathering mushrooms, and I'm not really making the film, but I'm gathering the mushrooms for this pie I'm going to make. And sometimes I have a day I have find a lot of mushrooms, and sometimes I don't find any, and sometimes I find some, but they're poison mushrooms. Sometimes I find some and they're magic mushrooms. And it's only later, when you look at all of the stuff you gathered, that you set about the task of making the film. A little more like an insect, not quite as high, maybe. Living right.
Francis was always asking for ideas, more ideas. Give me the wildest, most far-out things you can. This was a notion that came from the Cocteau Beauty and the Beast, which was also one of our references, that Dracula, when he hears about Mina not wanting to be with him anymore, gets so anguished that he kind of starts to steam, and his emotions take on this sort of physical property.
I would flip them and then, rather than having them sit right next to each other, just bring him around
Slightly
a little.
facing.
And then slightly facing, and then it would sort of cheap to that.
Okay. No problem.
We're always looking for connections. With a visual layered montage, certain shapes echo one another. So you have a shape of a glass, and that's a circle if it's seen from above, and then naturally you think of what else is circular, and an eyeball is circular, so you put those two things together. And those are all ideas that just came about in the process of boarding and looking for little connections that you can weave together.
A lot of times Roman knew the technique he wanted to use, but it would take some back and forth and thinking about it to see exactly how he was going to achieve it. Early versions of the opening were real kind of naturalistic and straightforward, and they never quite seemed to work, and Francis wanted to bring something more to them. This was before the idea of the silhouettes really came in, and one of the issues was, at that time we didn't have the fantastic eco design of Dracula's armor, which kicked things in a whole new direction. And, we were just drawing him in this lame kind of wolf head helmet, and that was kind of like, we got to do something to get this onto a different level. The silhouette idea came up not too long after that and was a lot more striking and kind of original. I always thought of it as a way to kind of start to clue the audience in as to the visual techniques that he was going to use through the rest of the film, and sort of to distance the audience from the idea that this was literal reality.
The warrior prince is surrounded by his men. They realize they are victorious. He gets off his horse and kneels, removing his wolf helmet. We see the young face of Dracula.
So the score was pretty instrumental in being, more than anything else, I think, a reference point of knowing what your original intention was. The different thing about Dracula was that so much of it was about evoking a feeling, trying to use specific sets of tools. The visual influences, the theatrical, there were so many different boxes that we had that we could draw from at any given time. And it was great because you had kind of limitless freedom, but you also had a direction that you knew you were moving in.